Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, September 29th, 2016, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode. Let me turn myself down just a little bit so I'm not clipping. I'm Norm, hosting this week. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I want to quickly introduce my two co-hosts. You know them very well. It's Jeremy Williams.
Hello.
And Kishore Hari.
Hello.
You know, it feels like it's just been 1 week since we saw you guys last, but I think we've been hanging out a lot more. I mean, I finally feel like I'm back into the groove of normalcy.
I feel like you've been in my house a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've been hanging out.
Yeah, I've been in your house when you're not there.
I went to...
This is getting creepy.
I went to Charleston, South Carolina this weekend to attend a wedding, and Norman and Danica kindly watched my kids while we were gone.
Yes.
And did a fantastic job.
Did both of your kids return? They're safe?
They're both alive. I was more concerned for Norm and Danica, but everyone was alive.
I was just there to as moral support and as a gamepad holder. So I didn't really do
Star Trek explainer.
And Star Trek explainer. I serve very specific roles in babysitting. So Jeremy, you have two kids.
Yes.
I don't know how much you want to say about how old they are.
6-year-old girl, 9-year-old boy.
Great. Yeah, and we've talked about you watching Star Trek with your son.
Next
Generation, Season 1. So for the weekend that we babysat, I played Magica 2.
All the way through, right?
All the way through.
Like, that blows my mind.
Nice.
So that's actually maybe the longest I've played any game in maybe 6 months.
For the record, it was extremely hot outside.
Yes,
So
we've had a heat wave in San Francisco. And then I also served the role of as Star Trek explainer, Next Generation explainer, but I also felt like there was a prime directive there.
Oh, yeah, you had to respect his innocence.
I had to respect his innocence.
Yeah.
He had not achieved warp drive in certain parts, so I couldn't. There's so much I had to hold back. There was a veil of secrecy. I could tease, and I could I could see what you had already seeded him with the information and the direction and the optimism of Star Trek Season 1, but things like Pulaski and
No, Pulaski's, that's a complicated topic.
I know.
He doesn't need that.
I know. So it was more about just nurturing.
It was so responsible of you.
The excitement, and not trying to sway any opinions or any characters, but very factual. So almost playing the role of the Star Trek computer.
Oh, that's so responsible of you. I mean,
what do we call that? The prime directive of Star Trek watching?
I think you could apply it to any TV show, though. I think as anyone who, and I of course, we're kind of almost jumping right into the pop culture segment. So, but we're not gonna play the intro yet. But like, if you're watching a TV show, if you're a fan of TV shows, like you and you're introducing a show to a friend, I love doing that. I love and I love when someone does it for me. Like, I had never seen Mad Men, but I love like watching Mad Men with someone who had watched Mad Men. There is a responsibility
to let them experience
it, but also help fill in the gaps, because they can't. If someone's binging a show, they don't get the week to week water cooler moments, the deep dives on internet threads. So there are things that they are not going to get from the binge watching experience that you may have gotten. And so as someone who's guiding a friend through a show, you have to find the right place to interject and tease and get their brain spinning a certain way, so they when moments reveal themselves later on in the series, they can appreciate it. Maybe not as fully as you did, but get a glimpse of that.
So my question is, you were watching Season 1, and we're about halfway through it, and you went into this thinking, oh my God, Season 1? I don't want to have to deal with that anymore. Right. But my son is watching it for the first time, and he doesn't know any better. Was it difficult? Did you see Season 1 in new eyes?
I absolutely did. I forgot so many things about Next Generation Season 1, how much they wanted to, clearly Gene Roddenberry and the writing team had a playbook that they wanted the echoes of the original series in Season 1, and also these grand ideas, like the first appearance of Klingons. They had like all these cultural differences that they tried to use Worf as a conduit to explain this thing, which it goes away. Like so much of Season 1 is set up for that universe where Star Trek is in the 24th century. The introduction of the battle bridge, like, which you rarely see later on, but it was like, oh, they wanted to get the idea out. This is a new Enterprise. You can split the saucers and battle section, and then so much of it's like Wesley Crusher.
There's so much Wesley Crusher. He's such a major character.
Yeah, I think most people remember Season 3 and 4 as the
as soon as they change uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think as a kid, he probably likes having Wesley be a major character. You know?
I didn't try to sway him one way or the other.
No. You didn't show him Will Wheaton's Instagram now? Be like, this is what he looks like now, kid.
He never made it through Starfleet Academy.
Well, in Season 1, like, you see him, Q makes him 10 years older in one of the episodes. And so you sort of see what he should look like. Of course, he looks nothing like that.
He's still wearing the sweater, though.
Yeah.
He's still wearing the sweater. It's a little bigger, but he's still wearing that sweater.
And Geordi goes, nice.
All right.
But yeah, okay, so I guess that catches us up. Let's jump.
So Jeremy's kids are still alive.
Jeremy's kids are still alive.
As is Norm.
It was a small glimpse into parenthood, and yeah, it was fun.
There we go.
All right, so what's been happening in the world of pop culture? Today's pop culture, aside from Next Generation rewatching.
We don't cover politics too often on this show.
We don't, but I think the recent political debate where 85 million people watched it, the most watched debate in all time.
Watched on TV.
Just on TV. I think qualifies as not only maybe a piece of pop culture news, but a little piece of technology news. So I assume you guys watched the debate as well?
I did. I watched the YouTube of it after hours.
YouTube after hours. Okay.
I watched it. went to a watching party, but then because I was at a party and pieces I missed, I rewatched parts on Twitter, which was it was really interesting the ways that I could revisit certain aspects of it.
Did you scroll through? Because, I mean, it's not the first debate that had Twitter. We had second screens 4 years ago. I think now you have a lot of just deeper dive. And the way people are using the second screens, the way second screens are even acknowledged in the debate when Hillary Clinton said, use a moment to give a shout out, go to my website, go check out this thing. There are teams of people. It's more than just the two people on stage. It's a whole infrastructure of things supporting this one event.
Did you second screen it? Because I actually tried not to. And the reason I tried not to is I follow Nate Silver and 538, and I listen to that election podcast.
He was quiet.
Yeah, and there's this in the preview, which I was listening to that day. They asked, like, how should you watch the debate tonight? And Nate Silver said the most throwback technology item ever. He's like, you should watch it and take a half hour and think about what you heard. Don't try to like interact with people. Actually approach it as like as a moment of information and education, and try to just assimilate what you heard
before
you
own
go
thoughts
to
are.
Before you listen to what other people have to say in their reactions. And I did that to a certain extent. And then I dove into all of the reactions.
I thought it was interesting that both candidates are always on screen. Like, unless there's a question being asked, you never don't see one of them.
Well,
for an hour and a half and no commercials.
Right, no commercials for at least 90 minutes. Where each of the networks, because I didn't watch it on TV till a little bit toward the end, and I got to almost get the full spectrum. I started with radio. I was listening on the radio. The first half hour, I was driving home, listening to the radio. then turned on TV, then did TV and internet. Did the different networks have different feeds? Or
Nope.
did they
Same
have
feed.
the same split screen feed? They didn't get to. There was no programming within the networks to switch between the cameras.
I think that's settled ahead of time. They fine-tuned this to the point where they argued whether Clinton would get a riser, so she would be the same height
And
as
she didn't,
Trump
right?
in the shots.
They made her a custom podium.
And then also the temperature of the room. All of these things
Yeah.
negotiated, which is like that's interesting from like a logistics standpoint and a pure politics standpoint. But in terms of production, they knew that this was something that they wanted to get into as many eyeballs as possible.
Yeah.
And there was no like lower third commentary.
Well, there was on Fox, at least there was, and for whatever reason, I was
okay.
I had found the Fox YouTube stream, and so they had their own lower thirds, and they were summarizing what was being said.
summarizing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could watch channels where there was instant polling from audiences that were watching it, undecided voters from particular states, and they would like turn a dial apparently to who they thought was sort of doing better in that moment, which is not very informative to watch. It's just a bunch of lines going across the screen.
Well, I
but-
think all of that kind of programming, everything you can do, whether it's fact checking or putting lower thirds or even putting polls up, that influences how someone experiences the pure content. Just having a visual. We know this from Kennedy Nixon. Watching Nixon sweat, and even today, that's relevant. Having a camera fixed on someone for 90 minutes, it's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. I was, you mentioned Hillary's fact-checking feature that she promoted on her own website. I thought that was a great idea, incredibly poorly pulled off because it was going to be on one of the candidates' own website.
NPR did it too.
We cannot be that far off from having some sort of live fact-checking be a part of the
Or like a bubble pops up
of
as
the
they're
debate.
speaking.
I mean, we could even, computers could automate this with, I'm sure right now, to some degree of accuracy, and that's only going to get better and better. And I could see there being a panel of people who are on the internet doing live research who are just giving like a validity meter for how truthful somebody is being at any certain moment.
I can't imagine the candidates agreeing to that. They don't
No,
agree
absolutely,
what
you're
the
right.
facts are.
But maybe
so-
they don't get to decide one day.
But even whoever does the programming, whoever programs the algorithms and chooses which databases to scrub, that itself is an editorial decision. Yes, facts are facts, but the way facts are presented, what you choose to fact check and the way you present the fact checking, whether in corrections
Is
or
delicate.
affirmations,
Yeah.
how many affirmations you choose, like all of that can have influence.
And that makes me sad. I actually left the debate feeling very sad because it reminded me so much of my sports watching experience. That there is
boxing match?
all of these pieces of information that they're adding on both visually and commentary, and there's this enhanced drama and conflict that's coming into play, which reminds me so much of a sports telecast. And if there's anything that I really resonated with the entire night was when Patton Oswalt tweeted, is like, watch this on PBS. Don't, like, if you support the idea of politics being an intellectual endeavor, which we all know it isn't, but I mean, if you support that idea, go with the throwback where there's not any of that.
Yeah.
And I think I should have watched on C-SPAN. That's what I think.
Oh, did they? They must have.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, before we move on, I just want to say that Kishore was asking before the show. He was saying that he's still undecided about who to vote for. So if anyone has any
What are you
suggestions,
doing?
he's at Science Quiche on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, you can follow me first.
Aside from debates and so many people watching it, there aren't any of these cultural rituals that we do. There's like the Super Bowl. What else is there that people rally around that can be touchstones for even just American culture in popular media? It's ritualistically we have Macy's Day Parade, right? Thanksgiving Day Parade, maybe.
Super Bowl?
Super Bowl, as I said, that Super Bowl and presidential debates. That's kind of it.
And yeah, as you guys said, that the number of viewers was very close to Super Bowl numbers for this debate. It's
I
huge.
mean, it's short, but I mean, Super Bowl crests 130 million.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you think about that number, 130 million means almost half of the population of the United States is watching that show.
Yeah.
It's 84. I actually feel like that's low on some level.
How does it compare to like series finale of Cheers?
Less than, for
Less
sure.
More
think-
people
wasn't-
watch the series finale of Cheers?
No. I mean, the
that's
debate.
it. I think that's like in the 20s, right? Like,
Wasn't MASH the one that had the most viewership? The MASH finale, it had 105 million people watch the MASH finale.
That's insane. I mean, even telling that has been a technical challenge. Like you said, there's 84 million people watched it live, but there's also YouTube streams. There's all sorts of there's edits that people cuts that people have done to digest in different ways. I wonder how many people are going to watch the Walking Dead finale as the most popular cable show in recent memory.
Well, that's if there ever gets to be a Walking Dead finale, because they're under a little bit of pressure right now.
Uh-oh.
Did you see the lawsuit that got filed against The Walking Dead?
No.
Why?
So one of the gentleman that works for the studio that essentially produces the show, and then it got licensed out to AMC, he sued because he is arguing that the license was done at an extremely low rate. And so he sued The Walking Dead for $280 million because they undersold the value of the show.
You're not talking about just anyone. You're talking about the showrunner, Frank Darabont, who made the show season 1 possible. The director of The Mist.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I said executive, right? That's what he was.
Yeah. He chose to leave the show. That's crazy. $280 million, which just shows how inflated The Walking Dead is worth in terms of its appeal and its pop culture relevance.
It's just interesting to have this done at this point in time. I mean, when people license IPs, there's still a level of checks before it even goes out to the public.
Yeah. All right. This is a story. The next thing I want to talk about actually popped up. I want to say a week or two ago. There were a lot of stories going around in movie blogs about the amazing VFX, special effects in Captain America: Civil War, which it's out on Blu-ray. Maybe that's why there's a renewed interest in it. But the Black Panther, who I thought was one of the best characters in the new movie.
Also, best looking outfit in a long time in a movie.
And had an amazing helmet and costume. There were some interviews that said, well, that costume was basically all CG. And just recently, there was a VFX reel that shows how much layering went on top of the practical suit to make it give it that sheen, to give it that kind of metallic sheen that it did. We've seen the actual Black Panther helmet up close. It was at the Ironhead Studios booth at Monsterpalooza, and it's a beautiful, beautiful helmet. Like, the amount of manufacturing on that is insane. I think that these kind of stories they undersell the value of the practical suit that was made, and.
Well, because I think the story gets hyped. Because when you watch the video, you can see there's still intricate detail on the suit that he's wearing. But when you look at it on screen, the part of the magic is all like the shading and like the sparkle that comes off the suit, the sharpness of the talons that he has or his claws. And that's not really done practically. That's all the visual effects. And so there's even though the suit is beautiful, and that Ironhead video is incredible that you're talking about, I think it just enhances the craft and skill that went into making the suit incredible. The overlays are pretty impressive. I mean, the suit still looks good. It's just when you see the VFX on top, it's just even more brilliant.
I guess as a composite, it's brilliant. As a science and art, it's brilliant. I miss believing that what I'm watching actually happened as a performance.
Did you see the movie?
Yeah.
Did you know that anytime Spider-Man appeared on screen, or not every time, the vast majority of shots with Spider-Man's all CG.
Yeah, I read
that's the one that actually is more CG. That Black Panther, plenty of shots were practical suit and maybe some enhancements for texture.
That's the thing. If I see Spider-Man, and I could tell from the original trailers that he was CG, like when he first appears.
You mean his eyes don't normally do that?
Hey, under
practically?
Exactly. You know,
I think they
when they have that level, I start to just question everything and just assume I'm watching a cartoon, and it just becomes a visual effects, scene, and I enjoy that. But I think I enjoy even more the first Matrix film, which was just you were really watching people doing things. It maybe the ropes were CG'd out, and maybe there were interesting camera tricks being done, but it was all actual actors.
And how quickly that went south in the second Matrix film.
Exactly.
Where it just looked like putty faces for so much of it. Did we talk about Kubo last week?
No, dude. No.
Kubo, incredible.
And I think the same thing, maybe we talked about it off podcast, but I have the same problem. I love that film.
Yeah.
I think it's a great achievement in stop motion. I think there's some problems with the story. It's maybe should have been more of a shorter film than a stretched out full length movie. But some of the sequences, especially the fighting sequences, are mind blowing. But I have the same problem with that film, and that's because they're melding CG with stop motion. There are parts where the stop motion is done either so well that I can't tell if it's CG. I would almost want it to be a little more clunkier.
Right. They've done that with every movie they've made. The Coraline, one I never saw. The Paranorman.
Great movie.
And then Box Trolls. They've always merged some CG elements, but with this one, it just became more and more.
Well, the faces, because they fully embraced stop motion or
3D printing,
rapid prototyping for the face swapping, and you can watch the progress from Coraline, Paranorman, Box Trolls to Kubo in terms of how many different faces, and I feel like it reached maybe its peak point in Box Trolls.
Peak meaning
the right balance between showing something that's physical and showing the limitations of having to make so many faces. With Kubo, I think it's maybe a little too smooth. They had so many transitions. Like I like seeing the lines on the stop motion faces when they have to swap out the top and the bottom of the face. I like that.
I understand. I totally get you. Like some of those dream sequences, with the origami, I was like, is this CG or is this stop motion?
Exactly.
I know what you mean.
And even at the end of the film, so don't want to spoil the whole plot, but Box Trolls, I think, is maybe the weakest of their films story-wise.
I would totally disagree with you. I love that movie.
You love Box Trolls. I think it's animation-wise still really up there.
Yeah.
I love at the end of Box Trolls in their kind of mid-credits, post-credits sequence, they do this time-lapse.
Yeah.
And it's like this soliloquy between two of the characters.
Yeah.
They have this conversation about existential conversation. And while they're talking, you can actually find this clip on YouTube. You see the animators, like in time-lapse, animate them. And it's like this magical thing. I love that. Like
I do too.
There's no blending out of the wires, no cutting out of any of the animators.
And I could turn to my kids at that moment and say, this is how they made the whole movie.
Right. And there's like a beautiful time-lapse tracking shot, so it pans out, dollies out. In Kubo, they did a similar thing at the end. At the credits, but without the kind of dialogue. It's just like showing how they made the sequence for one of the giant monsters. And watching that, I'm like, well, okay, I appreciate that now. But when I was watching the film, that monster didn't read as stop motion to me. That monster read as CG.
Well, because it was motion controlled. Like, it practically is CG. What's the line between computer-controlled animatronics and computer-controlled CG rigging? Right? It's going to be the same kind of keyframing and same motions.
But what you can do with the advantage of stop motion is you get physics and light. You get light effects, and you can also do tricks. There's one of my favorite stop motion animators is a British gentleman, Barry J.C. Purves. You guys should all look it up. Barry J.C. Purves. And he only has like seven or eight short films he's made. But there's one that he's made that it's called Screenplay, and it's in the Japanese style. It's like a kabuki in stop motion, a short story told in the kabuki style. And what he does is he plays with the set. So because in stop motion you're between each frame, you can hide things, you can remove things from the frame, you can take things out of the background. it's one of the advantages of filming in stop motion is you can do special effects, essentially magic tricks, because you're controlling every frame. And I think Kubo, the way it was maybe blocked out, didn't take nearly as much advantage of that, of the kind of magic you can do in stop motion. It was more traditionally blocked out film.
Yeah, and in some ways even more precisely blocked out because of the computer controls that they're having.
Yeah.
But I want to add that I think that they still use 24 frames a second for the CG elements, whereas the the stop motion is still 12.
Shot in twos.
Yeah.
Which that's a great way to differentiate between them. It was tough for me when there's early in the movie there's a village scene and Kubo is interacting with the people of the village, and my brain just started like you watching a CG costume in a Marvel film. My brain was just thinking, okay, which character is CG, which character is stop motion?
Yeah.
I know Kubo is stop motion, that old lady is stop motion, but that was distracting to me. I would almost not try to create a perfect, convincing, endless expanse of a scene and just focus on the art of animating the two characters talking to each other.
I was swept away by that movie. I can't wait to see it again. When I was watching it, I just felt like they were hitting all the right notes with the action scenes and the story elements. I'm a huge fan.
The other, again, I'm gonna actually. I know that Adam wants to talk about Kubo also, so we'll probably talk about it in a future episode of Still Entitled. But the other recommendation, you guys don't need a preview of this, is the Barry Purves also did a short film called Tchaikovsky, an Elegy, and that may be one of the most beautifully animated stop motion films I've ever seen. It has a stop motion puppet that's playing the piano, like the fingers,
and he's actually playing the right notes.
Playing the right notes.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
All of those are on Vimeo. We'll put them in the show notes.
Awesome. All right. I think, is that it for technology news today?
No, that's it for
I'm sorry,
pop culture
news.
We haven't started the technology.
Let's move on to our next segment.
Hey, I lost technology last night at 4 a.m. There was a huge explosion on my street, and it turned out it was power for the entire neighborhood.
Like a substation blew up?
Yeah, like, and next door lit up with what was that explosion?
Whoa.
And I didn't know. I just knew we lost power. And this morning I saw the power crew out in front. It was pretty exciting.
Wow. Hey, how's your Yahoo email account doing, Norm?
You mean my Flickr email account? I've changed all the passwords.
I had to go unearth my Yahoo account to change my password after the announcement of the breach this week, where, what was it, 500 million accounts?
They're saying the biggest breach of all time.
Yeah. Wow.
No, this
So
was not.
crazy.
The breach didn't happen this week. The breach is actually maybe months old, and
No, late 2014,
Right.
years old.
and
at
they've
this
known
point.
about it for months, and have only recently disclosed it, and to a point where their potential suitors, Verizon, is in the process of acquiring Yahoo, also didn't know about it.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
So that might jeopardize a sale.
It may jeopardize the sale, and definitely jeopardize Marissa Meyer's position after any potential acquisition.
Well, that I think was already in question. So there's two aspects of this. There's the breach itself, which is just so massive, and how it went for a year without uncovering it. But then there's a second aspect to this, that it was potentially state-sponsored, that this isn't a breach just by a rogue group.
Yeah, some like 400-pound guy in his mom's basement. That's what Trump would say.
Hey,
Yes. That is what happened. What he said in the debate.
How do you know that it's state-sponsored?
No, they're just leaks that have indicated from Yahoo that it was state-sponsored, that there was more organization and infrastructure on this. I don't know what that means at all. And as far as I can tell, there hasn't been any indication of which country or which entity sponsored this. But that's sort of the leak. Their press release literally says, quote, when a company strongly suspects that a state-sponsored actor.
Yeah.
So it is out there.
Is this like something that companies, do you think they're happy about saying it's state sponsorship because it's almost an excuse? Like, what can we do about that? Like, you know,
How unfair.
right? Like like they're much more powerful than we are. I mean, of course, the state could get into our system. It wasn't like a regular hacker; it was a state hacker.
So you don't buy it.
No, I do. I just wonder, like, if this is part of an excuse. If they're not entirely sure it's a state censorship, but saying that excuses them to some degree.
I mean, it definitely deflects the criticism of Yahoo a
Yeah.
little bit. So I mean, we need evidence now.
Right.
Like, we want to see what evidence it is. I really want to know why it took so long to find it. First of all, if it took a year to find a breach of 500 million accounts, that shouldn't that? I mean, maybe I'm being myopic here. Shouldn't that be easily located?
You would think that they would be alerted when it was happening.
Well, that's the goal. But like, we live in a world where these kinds of hacks happen quite often. But taking a year to figure out it did happen, and then taking another 3 to 6 months to disclose it because you're trying to sell your company, that's the shadiness.
Yeah, that's shady. And what was stolen? It was usernames, hashed passwords, any credit card info?
No, I didn't see anything about credit card info. But now my college fantasy picks are going to be compromised.
Oh no!
The only thing I still use Yahoo for sports, so I'm pretty worried. I know what I'm going to claim if I lose my league this year. It was a state-sponsored actor that really caused this. All right, on to something a little bit more positive. Did you see the DJI announcement yesterday?
You know, not only did I see it, I'm literally right now publishing our hands-on preview of that quadcopter.
That's cool.
You got hands-on with the Mavic.
We did. So yeah, Jeremy came along last week. Got a pre-briefing of this new quadcopter drone. Jeremy, you were there. You want to talk a little bit about the product?
Sure, yeah. I mean, first of all, DJI seems to announce a new quad every year at the longest amount of time.
Except for the Inspire one. Yes.
You're right. A
model.
new version of the Inspire one. Yeah.
yeah.
They're so busy over there. This is a very unique product though, because for the first time they're not advancing forward into the more expensive range and more professional range. They're actually trying to hit a new niche. So this is a collapsible quad.
Yeah, it's foldable. Yeah.
So completely toolless, all of the wings and the propellers themselves fold up into a very small amount of space. You can't fit it in a pocket, but you could certainly fit it in like a fanny pack or something like that.
Yeah, it seemed like when it folded down, it was maybe like the width of your laptop.
Oh, much smaller than that.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
It's very tiny. Yeah,
Like, what's a good comparable size? It's bigger than a pencil box, smaller than a loaf of bread.
It's pretty awesome, and so that's the most compelling aspect to me is that this is really portable. You could throw this in a suitcase, no problem. Take it with you on a trip if you want.
It's backpackable.
It's totally backpackable.
I wouldn't say purseable.
No, maybe not purseable, but like for me, I wish I could take my quad back east when I go to family reunions, but it's like an ordeal. This I could throw in a suitcase, no problem, and it would be completely fine because the propellers are protected, and then it unfolds very quickly, no tools required, and then it has a whole new controller which has a display on it. You don't even need to use a cell phone as the display because it gives you the pertinent information on this new display that's on it, and it's pretty neat. It doesn't. The camera's not quite as good as the other quads, where it's not as wide angle. It has a decent sensor, but the angle's not quite as wide. And you can fly it with just a cell phone, which
Wi-Fi?
Yeah, which makes it act like one of those Parrot AR drones, which is not a very desirable way to fly a quad, but it's there if you want it.
So yeah, portability is obviously the big thing, and we talked last week about the GoPro Karma. Their foldable drone, and which has that unique feature of being able to remove the gimbal. And DJI, I think their strength has always been in their tuning of their software and how well everything's integrated. It's almost, I would dare to say, close to Apple-like. They have literally hundreds of engineers working on the firmware app, and they sell not just the camera. They buy camera systems, but they make gimbals, but they sell also the speed controllers and the sensors that you can actually put in other drones if you build your own. So the Mavic, it was long rumored. People there's a video that leaked, and people knew that there would be some kind of small quadcopter coming out from DJI. I think it signals. It's a very smart category for both GoPro and DJI and other companies to move into. Compact, right? You already have these quads on the near high end, right? And you're not going to make a lot of money selling octo octoquads or octocopters for the professional market. They're there already. They're going to sell a lot in that Phantom line, but they really want to make this into like the portability, like the under $1,000 high-end toy line.
And just to put numbers on it for the listeners, it's about 8.5 inches by 3.5 inches
tall
by 3.5 inches, or 200 millimeters by 83 millimeters. So it is really tiny folded.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Yes, it's long ways. It's under a foot long, and it's a box 3 inches by 3 inches. That's correct. The question was where are they compromised, right? What are the trade-offs when you have to design a quad that's smaller? Because there are definitely trade-offs. Like that's why when you look at an Inspire versus a Phantom 4, just in the DJI lineup, there were trade-offs there. We talked about this, after going on the Arctic trip, I'm actually favoring the Phantom 4 a little more because of its versatility, because of the fact that you can catch it out of the sky. It doesn't take as long to set up, and it still is just as strong to battle high winds. It has rock solid stabilization. So what would be these trade-offs? With the Mavic, I think I was surprised that they included a lot of stuff that was in the Phantom 4. So you have your stabilization. It has GPS, GLONASS satellite tracking, which is that's the magic sauce that makes these quadcopters stable when they're 100 feet in the air and look like they're tripods in the sky.
It also has the down-facing sensors so that it can be tracked indoors.
That's right, a camera and a sonar sensor facing down so you can fly them indoors. It has a 3-axis gimbal, a motorized gimbal for the camera system, which was a big question. Can you put a gimbal, because if you look at the Phantom 4, that's a big gimbal system that camera is housed in, and gimbals are actually getting smaller, so they put a 3-axis one on the Mavic.
This all sounds great so far. I'm waiting for the trade-offs.
We're going to get to the trade-offs. And then, but the one immediate trade-off then is potentially image quality. They said they have the same sensor size that they have in the Phantom 4, which we're talking about basically a GoPro sensor, a camera phone sensor. These aren't DSLR, SAMs, or even Micro Four Thirds, or even 1-inch size camera sensors. But the lens system, because they have to work with that small gimbal housing, the lens is actually a weaker lens. It's a narrower field of view, not as many elements. You may get more vignetting. Looking at the footage, it still looks bright, and you can shoot in 4K, but I don't think the image quality is going to be as good as the Phantom 4.
That seems like
side by side.
An area where they could iterate easily for the next year, for the next version of this camera.
Yeah, and when we talk about camera systems, it's more than just a sensor. There's sensor, there's lens, and then there's also processing. I think processing is something that people often forget. I think people are finally starting to understand sensor size is important. Pixel size in the sensor is important. It's not just megapixels, but also lenses, and you have to consider not only the field of view of the lenses, but the quality of the optics, and then also processing. If you remember with the Phantom line, those gimbals were separated from the body, and the Phantom 2 had wires, so you had the vision processing inside the quad. They've moved that since then to the camera system, but without a lot of airflow for the Mavic, because it's pretty tightly built camera housing. I think that there's a little bit of image quality compromising in the image processing, or potentially. That's my concern. And then because you have a smaller quad itself, you have less potential for flying it in high winds and longer distances. So
that's totally expected, though.
It is and it isn't. I think that a lot of people, when they look at these specs, and I've seen a lot of people report on the Mavic, and they say it's just like the Phantom 4, it's just as powerful, and it can fly even further because it has this new OcuSync vision technology. When we took it up to about 250 feet, we got a warning, and the transmitter gives you a warning. Okay, the winds are pretty high here. It's fighting longer. What that also means is that when it's struggling, it's also using more power.
Well, we didn't have a Phantom 4 to compare to. Perhaps that would have gotten the same warnings.
I've flown Phantom 4s in those conditions, and no warnings. Super solid.
It hasn't been crazy windy the past few days. That's when you did too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was on Treasure Island, so it's like standard Treasure Island wind, which we've done so much of our flight testing over Treasure Island.
I got to say, though, it was remarkably stable when it was down low, and it was pretty windy. I mean,
and that's, I think, the right use condition. This is kind of like when you think of like the scale of where you're flying. with Phantoms, I have full confidence that you can take it a mile out, no problem.
Yeah.
As long as you have a line of sight and good radio signal, a mile out and it'll come home. I have zero fear with that. I don't know with this one. I think this one's more of like flying in the area of like a track, like a stadium, like a football field, that kind of area, flying within maybe 100 yards of you, as opposed to flying out, several hundred yards away.
Does it have the follow mode that the Phantom 4 had?
It does. So there's still computer vision here. They say it's improved. I wasn't
You didn't
fan.
like the Phantom 4.
No, I
version
didn't
of
like it because I think computer vision works. There's an inverse between the usefulness of tracking and the size of the drone. The larger the drone is, the larger the quadcopter is, the less useful computer vision and tracking is for you, because then you can't get it real close to you, and also you're not supposed to fly it as low because it kind of blows away everything underneath it. The Mavic being smaller actually may help its usefulness as a tracking camera, but there's also sport mode too. So this is something that you hadn't tried, Jeremy, with the previous Phantoms, and I think you love this.
It's much faster. It's I guess you lose some of the obstacle avoidance tech, but it's like a race car. You floor it and it just dips and it goes really fast and stops on a dime still. It's pretty awesome.
I think that's also the other thing you mentioned. There's obstacle avoidance, which they introduced with the Phantom 4, front-facing only. So if you fly in normal mode, not sport mode, and even at full speed, it'll recognize obstacles in good lighting in front of you and just stop.
There's a selfie mode too, where you can communicate to the camera with hand
Gestures.
motions.
Yeah.
So if you do this, it will like focus on you, and then it'll track you at that point. And then if you do this, it will actually take a picture.
And that worked pretty well?
No, that one was actually disabled in the firmware of the version we had. There are two new features.
They're promising this.
Yeah, so selfie mode, which I think is silly, gesture-based selfie modes, and then also a terrain mode, which
Because you're going to have your hands on the control anyway.
or someone's going to have it on the control and can manually take a shutter. I think the terrain mode is interesting because if you're flying and it sees a hill in front of you, it will actually use the obstacle avoidance to track up the hill and fly up at an angle, uphill only, up to a 30-degree incline, which I think is useful.
Two last questions. I know you have a video out about it. You can
Yep.
probably answer this. Can you talk about batteries really quick?
Yeah, so
New battery.
new battery, proprietary battery system just for this model. They're claiming 25 to 27 minutes of flight time, which is basically what they claim with the Phantom 4. That tells you that it doesn't use as much power as the Phantom 4. Lower RPM, smaller battery capacity, about 3,300 milliamp hours. But to get the same amount of flight time as the Phantom 4, it means it's not as powerful a drone. But also, you take that with a grain of salt because that's with obstacle avoidance turned off, and that's also not while shooting video, which video doesn't consume a ton of power, but it can. And that's with not transmitting 1080p video. It's only 720p to your phone, and that's not in sport mode. So it's in like your kind of search and rescue operations. You can get up close to half an hour if you're just using it as a way to fly out over someplace and see what's below you.
Does it just come with one battery or does it come with two?
Just the one battery. There are two SKUs though. So this is something they didn't tell us until they announced it yesterday. There's a $1,000 model, which has the new transmitter, and like Jeremy said, has an on-screen display, so you don't even need to use your phone.
It's not a video display. It's like an OLED text display.
Yeah, it reminds me almost like a old school like video game.
Yeah.
Like those old LCD displays. And there's also one without the transmitter that's $750, which you only can fly with Wi-Fi, or you can buy a transmitter. I don't think the transmitter itself is worth $250.
Well, it gets you that 5-kilometer range, hypothetically.
I think they
And not to mention, like,
aggressively priced
yeah,
the Wi-Fi model to try to undercut the GoPro pricing of
Yeah.
$800.
I agree. But I'm just saying that the controller's worth it because it unlocks so much potential.
And so my wish is that it was. I was hoping. I mean, who knows? I want to test this out. I don't know actually how much it's worth, but based on the specs and based on the limited flight time we had, I was hoping for something a little under $1,000, like $800. Because at $1,000 you could buy a Phantom 3 Advance.
Less than that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to tell you, though, the compact aspect of this trumps all that stuff. I mean, the ability to throw this in a suitcase or whatever you have, your weekend bag, is really, really useful. Because
not carrying around a Pelican case and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the camera argument. It's the best camera or the best drone is the one that you can have with you at all times, right? Like it's
the best drone is the one you have on you. Yeah,
it's it's a similar argument, right?
Yeah.
Like you use the device more when it's more accessible and when it's more versatile. So a lot of people buy drones and don't get a chance to fly it regularly because one, depending where they live and regulations, but two, because it's a hassle to have it with you. I think the Phantom 4 was pretty compact. Like that styrofoam case it came in you could travel with that. That can go in overhead. It's not baggable.
But I mean, it's not baggable. It doesn't fit with your other stuff.
Right.
Yeah. The other trade-off on which one last thing is that there are no struts. So the camera system isn't like drooping below the quadcopter like with the previous one. So you can't actually turn when you're flying 360 around. You're basically flying forward and looking forward.
Right.
That's not your one last thing.
And also
we have one last thing on this that I don't think you guys tested. The flight goggles that they announced yesterday.
They so briefly mentioned that in our briefing that because they're using this new Oculus Sync video transmission technology, they said 8 millisecond latency for a digital signal, which is really low. They are going to the transmitter supports plugging in FPV goggles.
And they have their own set of FPV goggles.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, they pulled it, like they showed it. It fits in like a small backpack. It's, looks very Oculus-like, except they're white and kind of clean looking. But they're deeply immersive if you watch the announcement.
I'd love to see these in person. I mean, usually people who are doing quad FPV are using RF signals because you need extremely low latency not to crash the thing.
Yeah.
So I'd love to try this if they really got a Wi-Fi signal down that low.
Do you care that they're being sold in Apple stores?
They've had a good relationship with Apple. They sold the Phantom 4 in Apple stores. It was a big deal for them. Apple only allows certain products, and these are at some point. Or I guess with an iPhone being about $700, the iPhone is the accessories of the quadcopter, or is the quadcopter the accessories of the iPhone? I don't know. It's like how you think about if you spend a $1,500 on a new big screen TV, at some point, is your game console the accessory to the TV, or is your TV the accessory to the game console? It's one of those things. Can't wait to test it. It's coming out in October. I think they're open for pre-orders, but I like that there's competition on the GoPro side, and I like that we'll be able to directly compare those.
I see volumetric display on this list of show notes, and I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, so this is another new product, and this is something super interesting to me as an emerging technology. There's a company called Looking Glass Factory, and they might sound familiar because we have encountered them at Maker Faire numerous times. They made two products before that were interesting visualization tools, we'll call them. One was not 3D printed, but like a 3D image encased in plastic.
Like a static image?
Static image. They would take 3D models and they would put them in like this clear plastic, and you would get like a floating model of an animal or a portrait of someone.
I've seen people laser like resin, so they laser dots and lots of dots in the center.
Right.
Or something. Is that kind of the same idea?
This is full color.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So they did that years ago. It was like their first product. They handmade them. And the way they did full color actually was they had 70, each volume was 70 slices of data.
Mm-hmm.
So they took a 3D model, slice it 70 times, and then layer by layer stack them in this clear block of plastic, after which, if you look at it from most angles, you'll be able to see a 3D object. If you look at it perfectly from the left or right side, it would disappear because then you look right along the slices.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which I think that was a way they could manufacture it this way.
Here, I have GIF up. on
Well,
my screen.
this is the new thing. So I'm talking about their first product. Their second product was called the L3D Cube.
I have that.
You have it, right?
I have the it's 8x8. Yeah, 8x8x8.
We did a video about it. I think they did a 4x4x4,
Yeah.
8x8x8, and I think they even had one that was like 16x16x16 at Maker Faire.
That was like
once.
$1,000. Yeah.
Well, at least.
Yeah.
This was like that cube, Hypno Cube that Will and I made for the tested video series, in that it was a matrix of LEDs. They were able to do this because they found cheap RGB LEDs. They were actually front-facing only.
Well, they were surface mount.
Surface
The
mount,
ones
that's right.
you made were not. Like you had to solder every single LED.
Right.
Their kits were much easier because you only had to drop these LED sticks into the holes.
Oh,
and
so you just
assemble it.
made a string essentially of LEDs.
Well, they just ship with these little these sticks.
Oh, so
that
you
are
just jammed
8
them in there.
tall.
Got it.
And then you fill in the gaps. It took about an hour to build the whole thing.
I mean, I think that was a really cool product, and it was like a nice like mood light type of thing.
Yeah.
And at 8x8x8 pixels, that's how many pixels is that?
It's
64 times 8.
yeah.
I can't do the math right now. Kishore.
Oh, you want me to do the math? That's 512.
That's right. 512 pixels. You can't resolve a 3D image in 512 pixels.
No, it's very.
It's
just-
abstract. It's
yeah, it's very
patterns,
abstract.
waves of light.
Mhm.
And you can do a lot of cool programming tricks to make a great visualization.
One of the built-in things was fireworks, for example.
Right. And you can kind of abstractly see fireworks.
Yeah.
It's kind of akin to the game frame, but for the game frame, you have 256 pixels on a 2D plane.
2D.
They're talking about 512 on a 3D plane,
Yeah.
which you need a lot more. And then even with the 16x16x16, you can see like floating shapes, right?
Yeah.
But you couldn't resolve a full image. So this company has a new product called Volume, where they're claiming it's 2 million pixels in a kind of volumetric area. And 2 million just makes me think of, that's 1080p.
Is that right?
That's the number of pixels on 2D plane in a 1080p.
Yeah, okay.
So the way this works is they're shooting a 1080p Pico projector through some special optics. And just like when we talked about how their first product had created a volumetric image through 70 slices,
Yes.
this one is basically a volume of 10 slices, and they split 2 million pixels across 10 different layers to then create a volumetric image.
Does this mean I can make my own like Tupac on stage?
You can make
Yeah, like that hologram?
like a floating, yeah.
Wait a minute. So it's like there are 10 different perspectives you can get?
No. Think of it's not exactly a cube, but for the sake of this explanation, let's call it a cube.
Yeah.
Right. In the cube, to see a flower,
Uh-huh.
right? You imagine the cube being sliced into 10 individual planes,
Vertical or horizontal?
vertical planes.
Okay.
Right. 10 vertical planes, and each of those planes are a slight angle.
Yeah. Like a
The-
lenticular display, kind of. Right?
No. But not looking forward at it. They're sliced vertically, going front to back.
Okay.
And the Pico projector shoots light from the bottom up.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to show Jeremy as you're talking about this so he gets it.
Do you get it?
No, not one bit. Not one bit.
It's so
I don't
light-
get how it works, but I understand the perspective.
So
that Norm
you
is
see,
talking about.
light shines from the bottom up,
Yeah.
and a 1080p image is split into 10 sections, each section being 1920 by 100, and each section of 1920 by 100
Uh-huh.
gets spread across
Okay.
one of those planes.
So you don't actually change your perspective on each of the slices as you move your head around. You still get just one
you
perspective.
still get one perspective.
But you get a different perspective on the slices.
Yes. And the way the slices are stacked,
Yeah.
gives you then angular, gives you parallax.
And that works? Does it look volumetric to you?
It looks volumetric from certain angles. From the front, the sides are blocked off
Yeah.
because
Well, I understand that. But-
if you look from the side, you just see between the
But
slices.
it does work from the front. You move
does
around a
work.
little bit. That's
So
wicked.
the conversation we had was like, one, how did you choose 10 slices? And two, how did you choose 1080p? The second question is easily answered: cost, right? Like
Yeah.
1080p Pico projectors is what makes this product possible, and it's a developer version. They're doing pre-orders, but hopefully going forward, you want to double that to 4K. You want to go higher,
More slices.
and you want to go more slices.
Yeah.
10 slices is a good trade-off for them because with 1080p, if you do more slices, each slice is going to have less pixels
Right.
to spread across. And they felt that at 10 slices, based on their experiments, it's enough to create a volumetric image.
Huh.
You would think you need more, and obviously you would want more in the future.
Yeah.
But then you also run into opacity problems too, because each of these slices needs to be on transparent film. And you want to be able to see through the rest of it when no image is being displayed.
So how do they project an image into the center of these slices?
It's across all, so that each of the slices is
Yeah.
at an angle.
Oh, so it's projecting up. So this is
into it.
like the raw video is just wicked, just deformed.
The raw video looks like, and they process it in real time. So you input like
Wow.
something from Unity.
Yeah.
It actually runs. It's just HDMI into the Pico projector. But if you look at the raw feed on like the iPad,
Yeah.
you see like
Yeah, you can see it here,
It's
Jeremy.
distorted like 10 slices of compressed image.
It's like the forced perspective paintings.
Yes, like those.
And you saw this in person?
Yeah, they brought it here. We'll have a video going up as you guys are listening to it later today.
So, I mean, everything you're talking about really brings back the idea of those holograms from like the 80s and 90s that were all the rage.
In a box.
In a box with which much more depth. But was the experience of it better than those holograms?
Yes and no. So there are a lot of like Pepper's Ghost style holographic tricks with mirrors that you can't interact with. And this one, I could move around it. I can look behind it. The thing that interests me is how does having a 3D visual object in the real world, because you can put on VR goggles, right? Like I could put on VR goggles and I can interact with a 3D model. But how does having a 3D, even a relatively low resolution 3D model in the physical world change collaboration and change design? If
Yeah.
I'm a sculptor and I'm looking at a 3D light model, even if it's only 2 million pixels at most, does that change how I can like visualize and work with that digital material?
I wasn't thinking about that at all. I was thinking about it in a more Harry Potter way of like bringing like the images in my house to life. Like there's a way that that this would just give motion to a lot of the memories that you create. Like you'll go to like kind of tchotchke kind of tourist traps, and they'll like 3D they'll make a 3D version of a family portrait in a cube for you nowadays, and this might be a nicer version of that.
So that's the other question. What is the content that fits on here?
So
right?
that was my question. I assume everything that they showed you was CG rendered.
No.
Really? Well, how do you capture real world? How do you do that?
We're gonna have to watch the video, I think.
No, I'll explain it real simply. They want developers to create the tools to do this, but they talk about how there are technologies like the occipital sensor, dual camera systems that do depth mapping, Connect, basically.
Yeah.
That can capture both video and create depth maps. And, there's a new product that does that in the market. The iPhone creates depth maps and also video.
That would just be the silhouette, like the outside of the shape.
But they can still capture that.
Yeah.
And it's like Minority Report. Do you remember Minority Report when Tom Cruise was watching video of his wife and his son, and it was almost like a depth map, like a flat video image projected on top of, and they had no back to it,
Right.
but it was
Yes.
it was on top of a model.
Like a Connect capture.
They can display those type of Connect captures in video on this.
That's
this
kinda
device.
cool.
And they recorded it. We did a demo where we recorded it with the occipital sensor here in this room, and then we play video right back on the volume, and I could look around. And you can't look all the way around it because that's the capture is.
And it doesn't
360.
take a ton of time for the processing.
No, because you're just. The display itself is once you get past like the original concept, there's not a lot of processing going on.
No, but to
Right,
cut
it's
them into slices on the
Yeah,
computer didn't
yeah.
take that long.
Not that long at all.
I like these guys. They're
Yeah.
just thinking outside the box.
And they said like this is
experimenting.
Or inside a box in this
right.
case.
Thanks,
inside the
Kishore.
volume.
There you go.
Yeah.
We got to bring this back online.
Will you be here all podcast?
I don't like my brain is a little bit broken with some of the in-depth drone discussion in this light mapping. I don't even know what to call that.
Do they have a name for it?
It's called Volume. Regardless of whether it takes off, like their developer version is $1,000. They've said very clearly this is not the consumer buy it at Best Buy version. I'm excited that someone's experimenting with
It's
this.
pre-order at $1,000.
Yeah.
It goes up
Right.
pretty
It goes up for
quickly.
early access, and it won't ship till next year. But like, I like that people are doing this,
Yeah.
and I like that even if the product fails, it will maybe teach us something interesting about human-computer interaction and visualization tools, and like it's a great mindset.
I just like that we're still at the point where it took me a while, but I can actually wrap my head around how a volumetric display works. Like that's cool. At some point, I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. It's
Right.
just going to be like photons being shot into some crazy material that has some physics properties I don't understand.
Just wait till we start talking about teleporting photons.
Yeah, see, you lost me already.
Yeah. Well,
Well, we haven't even started talking about Elon Musk yet, and we're all like, our brain is fried, and that's like the big thing,
It's
which is
coming.
coming.
It's
Which
coming.
is coming.
it's coming.
Why don't we fire through the rest of the tech news?
Great. There are new Rokus.
Yeah, so they've rebranded their lines from 1, 2, 3 to I think it's called Express, Premier, and Premier Plus. Basically, Express is going to cost $30. It's going to broadcast it's going to stream in HD. It has a dual core processor, so it'll be twice as fast as the current Roku one. Can't beat $30 if you just need real basic streaming in HD. Premiere is when you get to 4K. It's 4K rendered at 60 FPS. I think it's $80. And it has a quad core processor in it. Premiere Plus is when you get up to HDR included with that 4K. I'm a huge Roku fan. I have a 2 and a 3 in my house right now. I see not much value in going to the Premiere unless I don't have a 4K TV, but that's what I would get the Premiere if I had a 4K TV. 60 FPS is enough for me. I don't have an HDR TV, so I can't see myself doing that. But man, if you just need HD, $30 is unbeatable for what Roku has to offer. I should mention the Premiere Plus at the top end that also has an SD slot and some other features. But I generally think it's great. Form factor is also reduced a lot, so it's a lot slimmer, smaller set-top box. I think when you compare Roku's generally across to Apple TVs and other set-top boxes, I think cost comparison is a huge advantage in their performances on par.
Wow, that was okay. All right, next up.
Was that fast?
Yes, that's good. Blackberries. Sorry, no more hardware.
Yep, they announced this week QWERTY's gone out of the market. No more hardware. They're still licensing the BlackBerry name, but they're not going to be making hardware anymore. Well, I mean, this has been coming, right?
What do you mean? What else are they going to do?
Software.
They sell an OS?
They sell an Android, a version of Android.
Huh.
They can do. Yeah.
I mean, we
Maybe
can
build some security tools for Yahoo employees.
shed a small tear. Nice. I think one of the more interesting pieces that have come out this week is that Amazon is exploring
What?
starting their own shipping company
Oh, no.
to basically get away from UPS and FedEx, so they have full control of that pipeline to the consumer. I mean, most of the idea behind this is about saving money because they can save hundreds of millions of dollars this way. This seems insane.
I hope that this is just a play for them to get better rates from the third parties because I love that they use UPS because
What?
it's reliable. I know my UPS guy, like they're on the ball about everything. The Amazon delivery people, no thank you. Like they'll drop the package in front of my house. They won't ring the doorbell.
So the official company stance is they're talking about this to add capacity during like the holiday season. But there's sources that have said that the plans are much bigger than that.
Yeesh.
Yeah, I think this is going to be. I mean, there's no way you hit the ground and it's perfect with something like this involving so many people and so many logistics and so many processes. But
I mean,
are you surprised?
if one company was to do it,
Yeah, right.
it would be them or Apple for specific product launches. Like Apple wouldn't want to do it, but like
I wouldn't even trust Apple to do this. Like Amazon and Walmart are the only two that I would think like have the kind of infrastructure you need for something like this to even be thought of.
I will say that the Prime delivery stuff is decent, like because that's
You mean the day of delivery?
yeah, the day of stuff where they'll bring it to you within a couple hours in a bag and like you track it. You can see it leave the warehouse, follow it on the map, and see it come to your house. I do like that aspect of it.
I mean, do you think they could do that? Like they could partner with a ride sharing type service to do their delivery system that way?
Yeah.
I don't know. It could definitely work. That's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on, because if they go forward with this, it'll be like massive news.
Now, something that's I want to kind of go back to the beginning. Brief tangent. I need a tangent. No, that happens after a tangent.
No.
One of the things I did when babysat for your kids this weekend is we watched the movie Storks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it bad?
No, it's
Kelsey Grammer.
Warner Brothers made it. The same people did the Lego Movie. So.
Oh, really?
The same
Studio.
animation studio, and I think Chris Miller, Phil Lord had some input in it. So I thought it was actually quite enjoyable. But the funny thing is, the premise of the film is that storks who used to deliver babies now don't deliver babies anymore, and instead they are basically UPS and FedEx, and they deliver for the internet's biggest retailer, not Amazon, in that world. And in that world, it's a website, cornerstore.com.
What?
Yeah, corner
I've never
store.
heard of this. I
And-
thought you were at least gonna say Alibaba or something.
Right, and the whole time I was watching that, not the whole time, but as I was watching, I'm like, wow, was there at some point a discussion for at Warner Brothers to try to reach out to a big like Walmart or Amazon and try to get like some branding partnerships here? Because otherwise, it seems very generic. And Pixar's done this with WALL-E. They had.
That's part of their kitsch, though.
Right.
Is like coming up with
what
those
was it?
kind of.
By and Large,
Yeah.
which is a super clever name, great, like perfect as a fake Costco, By and Large. But cornerstore.com, like that is not a great name for an internet retailer. And then I go to cornerstore.com and it's a real store chain. The small.
What, like registered by the studio?
No, it's
real?
has real stores in the Southwest. Around
Congratulations
Texas.
to them. Their web traffic is about to go up.
And I'm like, okay, what is that deal?
With a
Like,
website from the late 1990s, now that we're looking at
it's like that's.
they have Comic Sans as their font. This is terrible.
So like what how did they get that deal that they would be the retailer for Warner Brothers?
Is it? It's not the same logo though. Is
I
it?
don't think that's the same logo as in the Storks movie. So
Hey, they have
how
more
did
followers on Twitter than Jeremy and I. We got to fix this.
I wonder if they did 2 weeks ago. They joined January of last year. I don't know.
You think it could be a fake?
Could be.
It could be 100% pure marketing. Why would they have a whole Facebook account, whole Twitter account?
That's weird.
Like
They're loving life right now.
yeah, or lawyers or someone made a good deal or
Yeah.
someone failed at making a good deal in the Warner Brothers side. Anyway, now is the appropriate time to bounce back up.
Oh, really?
All right.
I don't know.
We have one last tech story. So last week we were out at lunch, and Norm's watch pops up with the "Hey, it's time to breathe," and I kind of ridiculed Norm for that.
I didn't stand up. Well, first of all, you ridiculed me, and then Jeremy took it one step further.
I did.
Yeah, you did. So for people who don't know, Apple has a feature on their watch where it's a new app. I guess they want people to use apps. Every once in a while, just like they have the notification, it's time to stand up.
It's not an app though. It's like part of the phone. I mean, part of the watch.
No, there's an icon for it in the
Oh, really?
in
So you
the,
can-
the app
oh, I
listing.
didn't know that.
I don't know if you can delete it. It's like a stock app. We'll call it like the basic default app. But it says it's a breathing time. Now it's time. Spend the next 60 seconds and do a meditation exercise and breathe. And
Now you know why I made fun of you.
I
Okay.
tried to do it. I've been trying to do it because I want to inculcate myself with that ecosystem as part of the testing. But the way it works is, it does this rhythmic tapping on your wrist to let you know to breathe in.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to take a deep breath. So it's this quite long breathe in, and then you breathe out, and you do it for 60 seconds, and it calculates your heart rate, and it goes, good job, your heart rate's like 70 beats per minute. Awesome. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this. And then Jeremy's like, yeah, I'm doing it too. And the thing I wish is that it had rhythmic beating to tell me how to breathe out.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah. Isn't that true? I mean, that's true for me because I felt like I was breathing too quickly. So it only tells you when to breathe in, and then you just, unless you're watching your watch.
You can just breathe out.
Yeah, I know all that. But then, like, my natural cadence would be to still be breathing out by the time the watch tells me to breathe again. And then that's not going to lower
Or
my
you can
heart
just
rate.
add another breath in.
I'm actually with Jeremy on this because, like, if you go to like a yoga class or a meditation class, They'll do both the intake and outtake. So
Yeah, see?
see, I'm with him. But you soon won't be alone, Norm. One of the largest healthcare providers here in the U.S., Aetna, has just partnered with Apple around CareKit, and they're going to give Apple Watches to each of their 50,000 employees starting next year.
Holy cow.
Because they're going to
Wow.
start a new health-based system that relies exclusively on Apple products. So essentially, they're going to change their policy to potentially subsidize Apple Watches so that people will use CareKit more.
Wow, that's how dentists start pitching specific toothbrushes.
I know, and just so you have reference, Aetna covers 23 million people in this country when it comes to healthcare. Now, not all of those people will receive this coverage. I'm sure it's just the sort of top flight kind of healthcare packages that have that. But even that's a really big shift. And they must see some real data and evidence that that tracking and that data that's collected can actually inform better cost controls for them. I'm a little shocked, but Norm, I guess you're a sucker for buying your watch instead of waiting for your insurance to come.
Let me ask you a question, though. If you don't have an Apple Watch, you don't even have an Apple phone. So if doctors said, we can make you healthier by wearing an Apple Watch, would you consider it?
Or lower your insurance premium if you follow, if you breathe properly and you do, all the breathing exercises and things that your watch recommends.
So for Norm's question, absolutely. Like the lower healthcare costs, 100% I'm in. For yours, I'm kind of there. Like when you're in that doctor's office, at least for me, I feel really vulnerable and I'm very receptive to the kind of advice they give. Now, I've never had one tell me anything about technology, like make tech recommendations. But if they have real evidence that like, hey, you put this on, I'll get some of that data, or you have the ability to send me that data, and because you have an elevated risk for heart disease, I think this will be good for you. Man, that's hard to turn down.
Man, that's crazy. That's a whole new level of salesmanship to get science professionals to encourage you to make tech purchases.
I don't really like it, but I mean, I think it's a smart move. And we've made fun of CareKit, because it's just that feel good part of some of those Apple presentations.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is part of a larger strategy within Apple.
Right.
All right. I think that wraps it up for our technology news segment, but I do want to use this opportunity to thank the sponsor of this week's episode of This Is Only a Test, and that's Audible. Do you love books but find that you never have the time to read them? Well, Audible.com has the perfect solution. Get audiobooks and listen to those books you've been meaning to and read while on the go. At the gym or during your commute, Audible.com has the audiobooks from leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. The app is free and works on iPhones, iPads, Android, and Windows Phone, and you can download and listen on your Kindle Fire and over 500 MP3 players. And unlike streaming or rental services, with Audible, you own your book, so you can access your books anytime, anywhere, right from your smartphone. I've listened to quite a few books that we talked about on Still Entitled with Audible. And just for listeners of this podcast, though, you can get a free 30-day trial membership. Go to audible.com/test to start your free trial today. Again, show your support for our podcast by going to audible.com/test and getting a free 30-day trial. Now let's move on to our next segment.
Now it's time for a moment of science.
Speaking of science, and Audible, I just finished Red Shirts.
Oh,
whoa. Okay,
Great
hold on.
book.
This is like our discussion of the. I'm sorry, Kishore.
No.
We need
Don't
to talk-
apologize. I love Scalzi. So
I actually was thinking about this earlier this week. When I was over at your house, when is Jeremy gonna read Red Shirts?
Yeah.
While watching Next Generation with your son.
With Will Wheaton, who reads the book.
And with Will Wheaton, who reads the book, you are the perfect person to read that book. What did you think?
I didn't love it. Well, maybe that's because you guys hyped it up so much. Like,
What?
I know you thought I was crazy about it.
You
I
were
mean,
just saying that because I didn't like Ready Player One.
maybe, but it was okay. I just felt like it was a cute idea that was just I wasn't on board with it. Like just the premise, and I'm maybe you can even explain to me how can we talk about the plot, or is it?
Have you read
you don't
any
wanna
of
do
their
that?
Scalzi stuff?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, and it's been more like real sci-fi. It hasn't been tongue-in-cheek in the same way that this book might be taken. And so maybe I did like that aspect of it. I liked that it didn't take itself too seriously because I don't like Neil Stephenson even is just like really serious. And I dig the cuteness of this book. On the other hand, like I didn't buy the whole premise, although I was along for the ride and I finished it.
All right, we're going to have to save this for another time
we're
because
gonna
this is
save
going to be
it.
a big discussion. So next week, we're going to tell Jeremy
How I'm wrong.
why John Scalzi's Red Shirts is a classic. Well, we'll do a spoiler cast intro on Red Shirts.
Great.
Oh boy.
All right, I'm going to get serious here because it's time to talk Elon Musk. This week in Elon Musk.
This is it. This is all I wanted to talk about today.
We got to get serious here. So Elon made an announcement about becoming a multi-planetary species at the International Astronautical Congress, which was in Mexico this week. And they SpaceX live streamed his talk, which was almost 2 hours, including the Q&A. Initial reactions before we dive into what he talked about.
Like, I can't believe that this isn't headlines everywhere kind of
It is
news.
headlines everywhere.
I mean, I feel like this is akin to Kennedy's "Let's go to the moon" speech. But,
Okay.
but
I have no doubt that that's what Elon wanted it to feel like. in his head.
unfortunately, he's not the orator that John F. Kennedy was.
No, Elon's not a good presenter.
Right. So I think that's the major problem here. But the actual ideas that were presented were just, I think the audience was just, they didn't know what to say. This is huge.
Norm, your reaction?
I think you could say as much as you want, but without the backing to show that it can actually happen, it's just words. It's all borderline science fiction.
Do you feel like it was a sales pitch?
I think that's where I landed. This was not a pitch to us. This was selling people on a vision of the future to invest in. That was the largest, the most widely viewed VC pitch I've ever seen in my life.
Well, they did the biggest Kickstarter ever for Tesla Model 3.
So let's dive into it. So we got to talk about the actual hardware that he's talking about, the interplanetary transport system. This is the idea of this is the largest rocket ever created. It's bigger than the Saturn V, has 28 million pounds of thrust, which is 5 times the lifting capacity of the Saturn V, which is, and I think you guys talked about the Saturn V on Still Untitled this week.
Yeah, we did.
And it is massive.
It is, yeah.
Especially when you see it in person.
Yep.
This is a carbon fiber interior, and the models they showed are actual CAD drawings and renderings they've created. So even that image of the human looking out this giant window at Mars is real as it stands
To
now.
scale.
Yeah. The big part of this is that they basically launch this vehicle, the capsule disengages and stays in orbit. The booster, the main rocket, relands, which we know SpaceX can do. Basically gets another capsule, goes back up to space, and then fuels that first vehicle so it can shoot off to Mars.
There's multiple fuelings.
Yes, but that idea of like a orbital-based fueling is one of the key components here that we should talk about. And we'll get into the science of the actual fuel mix and why there's a new fuel being talked about
And when you
here.
say orbital base, you're talking about how many jumps to Mars, how many steps.
Well, that pathway to Mars actually kind of gave me a headache because there's a lot of things that are omitted from that. If you're going to be skeptical of something, there's this big slide he puts up where it shows like the 6 steps, I think it was, to Mars. He omits some really, really critical components in there. But he's talking about getting 1,000 ships essentially in orbit so that they could do these maneuvers because they each hold about 100 humans, and he wants to get 1 million people living on Mars.
Well, and he says that there's windows to go to Mars every 26 months or 28
Because the
months?
orbits become closer, and
Right.
since fuel is a limiting factor here, that's when we have to actually do the launch.
So we would take those 2 years to stage the ships until they take off Battlestar Galactica style to Mars.
Breaking news, he's really into BSG. I thought that was one of my favorite things. He's like, that was a great show.
A piece of science fiction.
It's a solar-powered array aboard the ship that helps power it. And the idea is you'll transport a lot of solar arrays to Mars so that once it gets to Mars, those solar arrays can power the generation of more fuel on the surface using water and carbon from the atmosphere.
So the spaceships are also landers. They land vertically on Mars, and then because Mars isn't a gravity well as strong as Earth is, it doesn't need a booster to lift off.
It doesn't need as much.
It doesn't need a booster rocket. So the lander itself can then take off from Mars and then return home one day.
What you just talked about is probably the most specious part of the science that was represented.
The lander being
the landing on Mars and the liftoff from Mars. That was all. We don't know anything about that.
Yeah, we don't have a map yet.
We don't have anything akin to that. I mean, if you just talk to some of the flight engineers from Curiosity about what was omitted from that piece, it's pretty gigantic.
I mean, to me, this felt like the 21st century version of those children's books. You know, those like 70s and 80s era space speculation books. Like, we can do this and we can do that, which were wonderful for the imagination, but not so much for actually getting things done.
Yeah, but this isn't like. I feel like they've done some research. They've been working for a long time on this. They've made serious accomplishments already. They've landed rockets back on Earth.
Yes,
and on
that is true.
platforms
But
in the
this
ocean.
scale of this, it is closer to concept art.
But this
than
isn't.
it is.
Where will we be 50, 100 years from now? He wants to send off the first ship to Mars in 10 years.
Yeah,
and
so
that's the one thing that I'm glad I'm younger than Elon, and everyone here is younger than Elon Musk,
Yeah.
because the egos of people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk
Right.
accelerates all of this because they want to be alive to see it.
Exactly.
I mean, Neil Tyson talks about how the Cold War got us to the moon, not like some speech from JFK. It was the race, the competition against Russia is what got us there. And when we figured out Russia had no real capabilities to actually get to the moon, that's when that stopped.
Yeah, so it's the
And
egos of
so,
billionaires.
If the ego of billionaires can get us to Mars, then by all means, Elon Musk, you are the greatest looking, smartest person ever imagined. But at the same time, we have to be honest about certain things. I understand your skepticism, Norm, but this was a pitch for $30 billion because that's the estimates of how much money it would take to fund this if it goes perfectly.
Well, but he did talk about a Venn diagram about people who want to go and people who can afford to go.
Yeah.
So now, granted, there's going to be a lot of investment in making this even possible, but for a ticket, he's saying initially the tickets will cost about $500,000, and he can see that coming down over time to under $1,000, under $100,000.
200,000.
200,000.
Eventually under $100,000.
Yeah, you could sell your house and go to Mars. I
Sell
don't
your
think
house and die on Mars.
And yes, probably. But he like that. You're talking about 1 million people. I bet that could possibly happen.
Just like if you're the first 5 people to get the Teslas and you get the VIN number 001, you can get Mars VIN number ID tag number 000508.
we can make jokes about it, but there's no doubt there's millions of people on this planet that would ache to be the first to go to Mars
And
or
not
be in
million.
that cohort.
and even one-way
1,000,
trip.
right?
Yeah.
One-way trip, right?
Yeah, one way. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we know there's the Mars One project going right now, which is this sort of social engineering project for candidates to come forward and go through this rigorous process.
Guess what? I think the Venn diagram of people who, 1, really want to go to Mars, and 2, have the resources and money to go to Mars, the Venn diagram of those people and the Venn diagram of the people who should be going to Mars and maybe the best mentally and capable are probably not highly intersecting.
That's interesting.
That's probably true. I think that's so far away from where we are now. I think that discussion is more Seven Eves than science reality. I think the science reality now that he represented was sort of twofold for us to really think about. One, this idea of orbital refueling is a conversation that comes up quite a bit. And if he's pushing that conversation forward, great. The idea of the new fuel mix is actually really interesting. So right now, SpaceX uses a mix of kerosene and liquid oxygen. And he's talking about moving to a cryogenic methane oxygen mix. That is some of the most dangerous mixes on ever conceived. Like you've heard Adam talk about how they would never use liquid oxygen on Mythbusters because it's one of the most dangerous things known to man. This is true here. He makes a good case for it being used as a propellant because it's the kind of propellant that can be generated on Mars. We can't make something as complex as kerosene there. It also probably doesn't have any benefits. There's a lot of good science there that still has to be developed out, but there's some thoughtful stuff there. The idea of sending solar arrays there, great, and solar on board. He underestimated according to a lot of people at NASA, he underestimated the amount of power that solar panels need to generate for that ship to go. And I think it said 200 kilowatts. We think it's a factor of 5 more than that. So there's some good stuff in there. He omits anything about the trip itself.
Well, except like the most like weird part of the whole presentation, where he takes about 45 seconds to talk about what a good time you'll have.
Yeah, you can. There'll be a hot tub where you can chat with other people about a simulated universe.
He didn't say there'd be a hot tub. He did say there would be a freaking restaurant, though.
Oh, yeah, he did.
And there would be games to play. You'd play zero-G games. He talked to him, and then he just threw out there'd be electric balls.
So
that is the concept. That's part of it. It's like concept art.
But I want to be
Chelsea
the guy.
Bonacel, like
somebody's job is to come up with those games
Yeah.
for the zero-G chip. That's the greatest job in the history of the world.
Jamie Heinemann.
Video game designer for Musk One.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's gonna be called Musk One. But what's important though is he doesn't like. There was no mention of like how we protect the humans on board from the radiation, which is a big hurdle we haven't talked about. The landing on Mars, which I kind of alluded to, this idea of doing a vertical landing and landing on a pad, it doesn't work the same way because of different atmospheric conditions there. So they have to think that through a lot more and have a lot of test cases. Expect robots to go to Mars. I mean, this was a pitch for money to send robots to Mars in the way
to build some infrastructure
and do a lander
to minimize death and casualty, so that Elon can be first person.
The stuff I would be really skeptical of that you've seen in the media is anything that says like, wow, SpaceX just ran circles around NASA. Nope, not one bit. This is really about combining a lot of information that NASA has and then pulling a lot from pop culture to create a pitch around that.
And bypassing a lot of the risk assessment. And
I don't think he's bypassing it. I think he omitted it for this talk.
Right, and I mean, he can get away with this type of private organization can get away with a lot of things that NASA couldn't get away with.
Yeah, I will say, the thing that I'll remember from this, I mean, besides the video, which is kind of slick and nice to look at, his argument that we need to be a multi-planetary species, the morning after whatever that debate was that we watched, resonated with a lot of people. I think. The idea that we can't think of ourselves as being just living on this one planet. And I think that's what people are going to remember from this talk.
Another thing that he left out, that he only alluded to in the video, was that we would terraform Mars.
He didn't mention terraforming. The video just shows Mars being terraformed over time, which was, again, that little touch of science fiction coming out. But
but he did say we could warm it up.
Yeah, well, I don't think warmth is the biggest issue they face there. There's a lot of other, like, can we even grow food on Mars? Can we create atmosphere from some of the elements that exist on Mars in terms of the ice caps and generating some of the turning some of the water there into much more breathable oxygen for the inhabitants? All of those are big questions.
I just think this is just fascinating. We could potentially see people on Mars, relatively soon.
So as much as I'm in the middle of the two of you on this issue, I think this is a net positive. Like, when is it a bad thing for somebody to talk about inspire people to go to Mars? I just don't see that. I'm never going to say that's a bad thing.
The idea that there will be their own political system there, that there will be...
I'll tell you when it's a bad thing.
Objection from Norm.
I'll tell you, it's a bad thing when that type of speech inspires people to try to make a ton of money as quickly as possible to pay for a ticket, as opposed to being engineers and scientists and astronauts and being the best that humanity has to offer.
So you might say the hype gets out of control. It's not like there's a pre-order button on the SpaceX website. Okay,
I'm sure if they did the market research, there absolutely would be.
Yeah.
Just like Virgin Galactic, they're pay your ticket now. People have booked the seats. Shatner is going to take his $100,000, whatever he took away from investing on a seat on Virgin Galactic, and put it in this.
Dude, I don't necessarily think that you're looking at this from the biggest lens here. I mean, one way to earn that ticket is to become an engineer, and there's plenty of people who are 10 years old right now who see this and they're like, "What?" Mind blown.
And that's what I hope.
And now and they're like, "SpaceX is the coolest company ever. I want to not only like buy a ticket, I want to work for them."
That's the hope. Yeah.
I think it's an overall positive. And he omitted a lot. That you shouldn't be excited that this is happening on the time scale that he promised. I mean, we have the Tesla car delivery schedule to show you that Elon doesn't nail his time delivery.
He even admitted as much. Yeah.
But I'm actually really hopeful. And the last thing I'll leave you with, my favorite thing that I saw from this was when they opened doors to this actual talk, there's basically a stampede of people, like full Black Friday moment of people running in to get seats and like kind of pushing each other and stuff. And now, while I don't endorse that, it's hard to argue with that kind of cult of personality that he uses.
Well, few people have the science, the type of reality distortion field effect that like people like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and like in the technology sector.
Do you feel like the recent SpaceX explosion, the launch pad explosion, left a kind of a bit of a wake that this presentation had to exist in?
No.
As I watched the video, which everyone should go watch of the move from Earth to Mars, I saw so many aspects that could fail, and I don't know if I would have been as pessimistic had I not just seen this explosion.
I actually didn't feel that that explosion got so much coverage that it was in the ether, like the way Challenger was. Like Challenger was a palpable, like we need to stop and rethink things. And it's still like we still remember the moments when that exploded. And obviously there are humans on board, so it makes a big difference. So I haven't heard that kind of level. Like most of the stuff that I've heard is really about how that puts them behind schedule for this, and that cascades. And so while this is a nice sort of blip that's an uptick from that, I don't really think that it was that was a major catastrophe that derailed the whole thing. All right, we have two other science stories.
All right.
Really quickly, for the first time ever, and this is just a claim, we have a baby that has 3 genetic parents.
Human?
What?
All right, so this is a weird story, and it's a bit of a mystery. So there was a set of... It's a mystery because we just don't know all the information yet. Set of parents in New York. They have... the mother has a genetic condition where basically it's a mitochondrial disease, mitochondria being like the energy factories in your cell. And the mitochondria get passed through maternal lines into the baby. They've tried to conceive 2 babies. Both of them passed away from this disease. So they had a third baby, and what they did is they worked with a researcher that took them down to Mexico, basically took the nucleus, the mitochondrial bits and the nucleus out from the mother, inserted it into a donor, which they had extracted those pieces from. And then the father's sperm was used in like an IVF way to impregnate this. So basically they have an egg sort of architecture from a donor. Mm-hmm. Bits of the mom that's in there to be inside that egg donor, and then the father's sperm.
So what's the chromosome split?
It's basically, like same from the father. Right. Like no difference in terms of a trajectory there. There's a little bit from the donor.
You're kidding.
And then a majority from the mother. But we don't have full evidence of this. So first of all, while the National Academies of Sciences has recommended that these sort of mitochondrial sort of maneuvers are approved, it's been blocked by Congress and the FDA. So it's illegal in the U.S. to do this. That's why they went to Mexico to do it. And so they aren't releasing a whole lot of information about it because it's technically illegal.
Why is it illegal?
I think it was mostly blocked on grounds of reproductive rights, because you're dealing with egg donors and IVS is sort of in this gray area for a lot of folks. It's a really weird case. There is a baby that is alive.
Oh, it's born.
Mm-hmm.
Craziness.
Yeah.
A boy or a girl?
Oh, I don't remember. Good question.
I'm sure it's adorable. Everyone loves
There's
a
a
baby.
picture of the baby with the doctor.
Everyone loves a baby. Everyone loves their baby,
Yeah.
including Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan.
Priscilla Chan. So this one I will disclose. I work at University of California. This intersects with me in that way. This announcement that came out about BioHub. And the director of BioHub, which you're going to mention, is my department chair, who I know well. Priscilla Chan, who went to medical school at UCSF, married some Harvard dropout, Harvard graduate.
Well, she's a pediatrician.
She's
so
a pediatrician.
She was well off.
Zombieland guy.
Zombie. And they announced a $600 million gift to start BioHub, which is a accelerated platform collaboration between University of California, San Francisco, Stanford, and UC Berkeley to accelerate research in certain topical areas around infectious disease and some others. The basic idea of it is that there's a lot of research that doesn't get funded because it's too risky. And this is meant to increase the speed of that and take bigger risks.
As I understand it, it's not only like regular research isn't just too risky. Regular research is directed at more short-term gains, so that they only have a limited amount of time in order to start offering a return on that research. Whereas this research, they've actually pledged to give $3 billion over the next 10 years towards eradicating disease entirely before the year 2100.
Now, that claim got a lot of derision.
Yeah.
We're going to eliminate all disease, and there was a big slide in back of Priscilla Chan when it said that. And that's been derided, but the idea of it and who they brought in to do it. So there's two folks that have been brought in to lead the effort. One is, I'm forgetting her name. She's from Rockefeller University. She's great. Corinne something. Anyways, I'll remember in a second. Leads the entire institute effort. And then Joe DeRisi, who is my department chair, leads the BioHub, which is a sort of accelerator. I'll tell you one story about Joe. He studies viral microchips, this idea of using these arrays that quickly perform assays, like these tests, quantitative tests in parallel. So you can basically get understanding of like viral infections really, really quickly. There was a 14-year-old kid in, I want to say, Kansas City, who had a meningitis. Basically, his brain was swelling. He was going to be dead in a couple days. They had to put him in an induced coma. They couldn't figure out what infection he had. And basically, the doctors came down and they're like, we only have one last thing we can do. We have to try this experimental method. Shipped over a sample to Joe and his collaborator, Charles Chu here at UCSF, and they ran this quick microarray test, this viral test, identified the pathogen, and the doctors were able to treat him and save that kid's life within about 3 days. So this idea of quickening the pace of our detection and treatment of pathogens in both of a basic research and a applied clinical realm, there's stories that prove that this can bear out in really amazing ways. But at the same time, there are silos that exist for somebody like that to work with somebody at another institution. There aren't easy pathways for that to happen. So if there are all these smart people, that we eliminate some of those, bureaucratic barriers because they work at Stanford and somebody works at a different institution, maybe we can get some acceleration. That's basically the idea of this. It's pretty exciting.
This is great news for scientific community, right? Because they have a lot of money now, and they don't have to.
It's more freedom too. It's the kind of money where you don't have to spend all of your time writing that incredibly intricate grant to get the money.
Right.
It's more like, we're going to take a bet on you,
and it could take 10 years, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's the idea behind it. I think that's it for science this week.
All right, let's move on to our next segment.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Nothing happened? All right.
Nothing
Testing this week.
This was a light week.
Wow. I guess in terms of actual product and software news, Yeah, a little bit light week. But in terms of things tangentially related, maybe some directly related to the VR community and development, not so much. So we can't.
It was a nimble week.
Oh boy! Oh boy! So late last week, what was Telegraph? I forget who was the news site that broke the story. The story was broken that Palmer Luckey, founder of Oculus, had made some donations.
The Daily Beast.
Sorry, Daily Beast. Made donations to a organization that was founded in Reddit called Nimble America that had been used to build billboards and promote meme making to affect political change. And it wasn't a kind story. There were a lot of accusations made. Facebook and Palmer had to issue statements. Palmer regretted that his actions, he made the actions, I guess, that he tried to push the story away from what he actually did.
He said he gave $10,000.
$10,000 to this organization because he wanted to make these memes, which frankly,
Shit posting's fun.
Exactly.
A jolly good time.
Yeah. And I don't think it's still resolved as of yet. No one has said anything since. I think we believe that people are free to have whatever political views that they want, regardless of what company they work for. But if you're the face and the founder of a big company and you're promoting shit posting, then maybe that's not so cool.
I have no problems with him donating the money, like his right to do so. It's just dumb to do it, especially because what I think it really invites is there is a lot of people that have been disappointed with the rollout of VR so far, both from the lack of AAA games, the actual rollout of Oculus earlier this year, and this just gives them license to write all of those negative stories that are pent up, I think.
I think so too. And it's not, I mean, it works, I think it works both ways. I think, like, for example, Valve, Gabe Newell has never hidden from the fact that he's donated to Democratic campaigns. And if it's also the right of developers to change their support for platforms based on what they feel like, whether they're aligned with, the beliefs of the people they're working with. So after this came out, you had Polytron, the publishers of Super Hypercube, say that they're gonna release on Steam, but they're not gonna release on the Oculus platform.
Do you see many people doing that in response to this?
I don't say at least one developer.
There were
yes.
3 or 4.
Yeah,
and they're not major developers, and certainly none that Oculus has are offered to pay or help subsidize.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will fade because
I think it should
kind of apologize. I don't know what you call that Facebook post that he put out there.
He
admitted to it.
He admitted to it, and he was sorry that it was reflecting on Facebook. So he didn't want
the reason I think it's not over is because a lot of it was PR and damage control, and if it's not a full, how honest his apology was is still in question because the Daily Beast writer and their editors still hold on to their allegations that he wrote that post that was posted on Reddit, the one that stirred the most controversy. It wasn't just the donation, but it was the language and of that very specific post of that user.
I'm with you guys. You can vote for whoever you want to. You can support whoever you want. But I was just really surprised that he paid for shit posting. It just seems like a destructive way to add to the discussion.
Yeah.
And I was really turned off by that. It could have been shit posting for the other side. I mean, really, it was just like that level of political action is just seemed very odd. And a lot of people have attributed it to his age. He's 22. He came into a lot of money early.
24.
Sorry. So he's 20. He's young. He came into a lot of money early.
That changes everything. Those 2 years is when you really grow up.
I don't buy that. I mean, when I graduated college, I think I was mature enough to know the difference between real political discussion and action and this kind of thing. So that turns me off more than anything. And I wonder what it's like to be at Oculus now and to see him in the hallway. I mean, I know he's received a lot of support from some of the executives there, but I know that this probably affects people's opinions of him inside the building.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's a change.
No, it's not on us to change our coverage because Oculus is more than just Palmer Luckey, and Oculus is a lot of people working together and a lot of the VR community. I think that we can hold him accountable for his actions as a person, and we don't have to be friends with him, but I think we're still going to treat the hardware and the products as for what they are.
I'm totally on board with that too. I think that
100%.
that the people coming out against Oculus now are taking that too far. Like
I think if you come out as a consumer, that's fine.
That's totally fine.
That's totally
and I think
legit.
that goes to your point of that this built up. It was an excuse for, and maybe the right excuse for all the pent up frustrations that people have had with the launch so far, and it was brought to light a lot of these things that have fallen short in VR promises over the past year since launch. And so its timing could not be worse with Oculus Connect coming up next week. I'm fairly certain that they probably will not make him available for interviews, but it's tough. Like, how can you have an Oculus Connect without Palmer Luckey?
Do you think he'll be there?
Yes.
Do you think he'll deliver a talk? On
Yes.
Part of the keynote?
Yes. I mean, I don't know this. I'm not privy to anything, but my feeling is I think it would call more attention to it if he was not there. Especially Oculus Touch being his quote unquote his pet project,
Right.
and we're coming up to that launch hopefully.
Let's transition and talk about Oculus Connect. Do you have any hopes for what's coming next week?
I am so surprised about how little has been revealed about Oculus Connect, given that it is 1 week away. And this is probably last year's Oculus Connect was the most important Oculus Connect for the company. Mark Zuckerberg was there. It was in a big venue. It was ahead of the launch. It was before both Steam VR, or before both HTC Vive and the Rift launched. Now there are more developers. Now it should. But you have basically just 1 year later the thing that's going to make it actually super compelling, Oculus Touch.
Yep.
It's so important for this to launch properly, and they haven't done the launch event. They haven't showed all the games that are going to come out for Touch to renew the interest, to get them back into equal footing with the Vive.
So what are you hoping to see?
I'm hoping to see a lot of games that are touch supported, both exclusives and new stuff that's going to be on other platforms. I want to get access to developers who've been working with touch and also Vive and also PSVR and learn about their experiences with 3. And I want to see in the more than 6 months since the Rift has come out, what developers have learned about what users want and how that may change their development and what type of games they want to pursue. I mean, things just like Feral Rights we talked about last week. I don't think that type of game with that budget would get greenlit today, knowing how that's been received and knowing that there are opportunities to do things with touch.
Do you think you're going to get an Oprah moment? You get a touch and you get a touch. I think it's a lot more likely now
It wouldn't
after
surprise
the
me.
news of this last week.
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
What about pricing? Where do you want it to be?
We talked about this last week. I mean,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be, based on some leaks overseas, around $200. I was hoping for between 100 and 150, but I could, I think that the people who have the Rift, it's going to be the essential accessory. And I think when you look at the Rift package, you have to look at it as both the Rift and the Touch, $800 or whatever it's going to be, as opposed to just the entry level SKU for $600.
I'm excited to see their chaperone solution. They've announced that there will be one.
They have a name for it.
Yeah, what's it called?
It's like guidance or
Something. Yeah, but that's great, and I look forward to seeing how that compares, because they've had the benefit of Valve as showing an example.
Guardian.
to
sorry.
improve on.
Guardian.
After I T-boned myself playing Damage Core, I'm really excited about that too.
And it's different because they have no world-facing camera on the Rift. So their chaperone system is going to, by default, be different than what the Vive is capable of.
Well, yeah, that's true. I don't use that camera on the Vive. I just use the holodeck walls.
I use the camera when I have it pop up when I get close to the walls.
You do? I don't do them.
I really want to see something out of Medium, especially integration with some other things.
There's been
I
some
think it's
great stuff.
Yeah, and it's been amazing, but it's all been done sort of piecemeal and sort of leaked out. I want to see that up front on stage, because I think that's probably one of the most powerful tools that is coming with touch, and we haven't heard much from Oculus about this. We've heard a lot from the people making stuff with it.
I want to see more social stuff. What they previewed at the Facebook event, their big developer conference, with basically sharing images, sharing virtual 360 environments, creating avatars. Even if it's just two people, but hopefully chat rooms in VR become a thing. And we've seen that with with the Pool Hall VR game, right? That's a legitimate, compelling experience.
I wouldn't mind if their hub, if the Oculus Home became that, if it became like an extension, you can invite people into your space.
And I've asked them about that, like, how much customization when we're going to see the next version of Home. And because Home isn't designed to be a walkable virtual environment, it's just a skin right now. It's just a background for, rendered 3D background for this overlay, this kind of Xbox style overlay. Unfortunately, I don't see that changing much.
Yeah, I'm just saying it would be cool.
It would. I agree.
They got to flatten that rug out too. A lot of people are messed up over that rug fold.
I mean, and to be fair, there is no kind of equivalent on the Vive as well. Like, I would love for, you can download Steam VR skins, make the loading screen look like the holodeck, but I would love to see it be more like what the Wii did in terms of floating heads and people being able to chat. And, we need PictoChat for VR.
Have you started seeing those PSVR ads? I think we talked about that briefly.
They've had ads for a little bit now. I love their ads.
Their ads are great. We're getting close to that launch.
We are. The launch is going to be on the 13th of October. I've seen the TV ads, and I completely agree. The CG that they do, so they show you the eyes of the users through a transparent rendering of the goggles in front of the eyes, I think is really smart. It's not exactly mixed reality, but it connects the idea of people looking into a space. But it feels really weird that, there are a ton of PS4 units out there. So many PS4 units. This does not feel like a Connect 1 style launch. When Microsoft launched Connect for Xbox 360, it was the killer thing you must buy for that holiday season. And at that point, a ton of Xbox 360 owners already. It almost was like their second their console launch. I think the PS4 Pro took the wind out of PSVR. And if someone's going to make a purchase this holiday, I think a lot of people are going to buy PS4 Pros because they can use more stuff. Maybe they bought 4K TVs. Maybe they see themselves, they have a big library of PS4 games already. They may see more advantage to that than they would buying PSVR as an accessory for the PS4.
I don't know. What are you basing that on? I mean, it could just be that there's better margins in the PS4 in the Pro, and maybe they have more in stock. Maybe there's an issue.
No. I don't mean as a supply demand thing. I think as a consumer. If I'm a PlayStation fan, right, and I have a PS4, or maybe I don't have a PS4, and I'm thinking this is the holiday to buy something because it's like mid-generation for the console. There are a lot of games out there. If I'm looking to spend $300 to $400, it may be more compelling from a casual user to buy PS4 Pro than PSVR because PSVR is unproven.
I think you'd be crazy.
As a VR enthusiast, I agree. I think you're going to get a completely different experience in VR. I think for people who have not experienced VR or their only exposure has been like Google Cardboard, and if they own a PS4, I think PSVR is going to blow their mind.
My concern about PSVR is based on the experiences we've had at their events. It has only been one, their event.
I've been two.
Oh,
E3.
Sorry. They push the motion sickness more than Oculus and internal Valve stuff has done.
Game direction or in hardware?
No, in game direction.
Yeah, like that one game. What was it? The big Colossus game.
Right. I didn't play that.
I didn't like that.
But there was one where you're kind of flying around UFOs and everything, and just detached. And there's all kinds of like lateral movement and spinning. And these are games that they're putting out there. And I feel like they are not being as careful with people's sensitivities as the other two properties are.
For a mass market device, that's a little worrying.
And I'm worried about that. Although I will say there are definitely some awesome titles, like Battlezone is a wonderful title, wonderful cockpit game.
Headmaster,
lots of motion that worked for me.
The thing that I think is the strongest the strongest asset for PSVR isn't just the number of potential users, which we know like already outnumbers, number of PS4 owners,
40 million.
40 million outnumbers number of people, and the ease of just buying it and plugging it in versus building a computer. Like that's a large potential user base. I think the advantage, really the big asset though, is where the VR games are going to be played.
Right.
And it's going to be in the living room. And the fact that developers were given the tools to either show unwarped mirroring on TVs, so you have a type of social experience, or designed specifically for asymmetrical social experiences. I think that PSVR, the bundle that you get, because you get a demo disc, and they announce like you get demos of Battlezone, eValkyrie, and all that stuff. But there's also the PSVR Playroom, not Worlds. Worlds is their montage of games, but Playroom is going to be the Wii bowling of PSVR.
That's the party game.
That's the party
because
game.
everybody's engaged, even the people on the couch.
Yes.
And sometimes you're on the same team as the person in VR, and
Yep.
sometimes you're the opponent.
Yep.
And that's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
It's like Keep Talking. They were inspired by Keep Talking and No One Explodes. Same kind of idea.
But they didn't make something that taxing. Like the
Yeah.
fact that they have very simple games. You're a cat and you got to spot the mice, and they're cutesy animations. I think that's going to kill.
The voice changing,
It's going to slay.
it's funny.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for the VR Minute. Again, probably a lot more next week.
Well, we're not going to do it in time for Oculus Connect, though, are we? Because that
That's
lasts,
a really, really good question.
it may be 2 weeks.
Because Oculus Connect is Wednesday and Thursday. I mean, if people...
Why don't we do a late podcast
We
next
can
week?
do maybe a late podcast. We'll be at Oculus Connect on Thursday. And we may...
Why don't you just do it too?
We may just do a
duo.
recording on location.
Yeah.
A VR-only podcast.
VR hour.
The VR hour next week. Or we can record the first half of a podcast and do the second half as a VR half hour.
Don't make your life harder.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We were still in discussion about it. All right, let's move on to testing.
Testing this week.
Hey, what have you guys been testing?
I got some crazy headphones, man.
Let's talk about your headphones.
All right. So The Verge wrote an article that said, drop what you're doing right now and buy these $38 headphones right now. And it was the most glowing review you've ever read for any product ever. I mean, it really seemed hyperbolic. It was just like, how could they possibly be this good? So, of course, I tried to pick them up, but they were all sold out on Amazon. I had to go with many, many deep, had to import them from Japan. It took a month for them to arrive. They're called the Carbo Tenor ZHDX 200 CTs. And damn, these are amazing earbuds.
Earbuds, not headphones.
They're earbuds. And I had to pay $60 for them. They sound like they make everything else I own sound muffled.
They just look like regular earbuds too.
They do. I don't know what magic sauce is in these earbuds, but I assume that there's some high-end earbud that's been rebranded and put into a cheaper shell. The cables aren't that thick. There's nothing special about the way they look, but I'm hearing things I've never heard before. Like it's across the spectrum. It's clear, and I'm A/Bing them with like earbuds I have that would cost $130.
It's just $60.
And it's like
They actually are supposed to retail for $38. They're just sold out, so the price has gone up.
It's not a small difference. Like I'm like clearly hearing different instruments and different aspects to the sound, and like it sounds now like it's supposed to sound.
I would love to
I'm really
test
happy.
these.
Really happy.
Oh wait, do they have a 1/8 inch audio jack? They plug in the headphone headphone.
They're not
port?
lightning.
They're not lightning. Oh, I guess I can't use them.
Yeah.
Then. Wah, wah.
Have you lost your adapter already?
Oh no, I still have the adapter. So yeah, I got the iPhone 7 Plus. It's jet black, blackest of blacks. The things that interest me, and there are a lot of things to say about this phone, and there's things to be tested and things we'll talk about when we do a full review. But obviously, the camera system is the point of highest interest. The inconvenience of a lack of headphone adapter is number 2. Other things are kind of then peripheral to that. The new home button, battery life, and display and stuff like that. By all reports, it's a wonderful display. The camera has been disappointing so far. Yeah. The Fusion system is the thing that's interesting because it's not so much a toggle. On screen, it's a toggle 1x or 2x. But because so much of it is done in the background, I never know when it's actually using the second camera or if it's using the digital zoom on the 28 millimeter.
Can't you go to a 1x zoom and just toggle between them?
No, when you're in so there's only one camera app. You see one viewfinder,
Right.
And on the bottom is an icon that says 1x. You tap it and it goes 2x.
Oh, and that's the
And that's
telephoto.
theoretically the telephoto,
Got it.
but it oftentimes isn't. Oftentimes it's just a digital zoom because the software will dynamically switch between the images based on the shutter speed and lighting.
Oh.
So in most indoor environments, if you're thinking about taking photos in either low light, and I'm not even saying like after dark or like in a bar, but just like in an indoor environment, maybe someplace like the cave or office, and you go to the 56 millimeter, more often than not, it's actually using the 28 millimeter digital zoomed in. Only when it's perfectly bright light or when it's outside does it default. And you can simply test this. I cover the lenses, and you don't see my finger peeking in on the 56 millimeter.
Has the portrait mode piece been enabled yet?
Only in the beta, iOS beta, which I'll be installing to test that. Last week, let me do a quick 2x zoom. Wow. I mean, I love the idea of that focal length, 56 millimeters. I'll show you guys. But it changes for photographers and even for casual photographers. It should change how you think about framing photos, and it's not just about zooming in when you're across the street and you want to get a close up of someone. It should change even when you're right in front of someone how you frame their face and take a portrait. It is really a normal, quote unquote, normal lens. The size of the image on screen is equivalent to the size of the person as you would see it in real life. I love that potential the potential to educate and change how people are taking photos and share their photos. I think it's very clear that Apple wants to do that without giving people full hardware control.
Well, what they want to do is make it as simple as possible.
Right, and blend and take away the stigma of digital zoom by just enabling that and then using image processing, maybe sometimes combining both images, sometimes just choosing the one that's better, the wider aperture, to take away the stigma of digital zoom, which has been a stigma, for a long time. I've told people never to use digital zoom because you can always just crop in later, even in the app. So that seems to be the trajectory they're going with at least with the camera system.
I hope you do try the portrait mode because that's the most interesting part to me.
The other thing that's interesting with the jet black one is that it tells me that their design really wants that front face to be one screen.
Are you thinking about next year?
And not just next year, like their dream in terms of design, like Johnny Ives, like the only reason jet black is one of the reasons jet black is compelling is in most lighting conditions when the screen is off, it looks like one flat display across the whole front.
So all this like taptic button, you think all that's gone?
Butt taptic? What are you talking about?
Like if it's going to be just one screen, then
the home button.
The home button.
That's such a good question, right? Like you can't. There's the Touch ID. They can't make it less accurate. They can't make it less fast on a new model. We've taken for granted those things. Touch ID Apple Pay and Touch ID are an essential part of their business. And as far as I know, there's no way to put that kind of camera sensor, what Touch ID is, and also the capacitive sensor, you can capacitive, but Touch ID behind a screen. So they're going to have to either put it on the back if they want a full screen or not do a full screen and just have the top half of the screen and still have a small button on the bottom. I don't know what they're going to do.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if they turn the Apple imprint on the back into the fingerprint sensor.
Right. And I can hear
people
going
saying nuts.
Going nuts and saying Android did it, other phones have done it, Apple's copying. Apple doesn't care. Apple don't care. Apple don't care. I think you're right. The Apple logo will become Touch ID, which is weird and I guess that makes sense because you can still use as a virtual home button on the front of the because the Taptic engine works on the front, they would just have an additional sensor, the camera sensor.
It's just
on the back.
moving the sensor. That's not
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah.
Have you there's a new reset command now because the home button and power doesn't work
Together?
Yeah, as a
Are you
going to
reset his phone?
So it's like volume down and power now, just in case you need to reboot.
Yeah, the home button, guess it feels fine. I use the strength level 3 response because I want the most impact on that.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for people who wear gloves. People who live in New York who
This
wear gloves
winter.
and use their
That's why they have capacitant gloves now.
No, they don't. Apparently, that doesn't work.
no gloves. Capacitive gloves.
Yeah.
Oh, you would need capacitive gloves plus your finger still sticking out. It's for the activation of the sensor,
Wow.
right?
That's why we live here. Don't need gloves.
Ongoing testing of that. Reviews later.
Tweet some portrait mode shots.
Yeah.
I want to see those.
Got to install iOS 10, the latest beta. I also got a new camera. The other thing I've been testing. There's a lot of things I can't talk about also that will reveal themselves in later weeks. But the Canon 5D Mark IV, I took the plunge.
We were on a shoot on Monday, and you
And I
had
was
that
using
out.
it. Yep.
Yeah, it looked great.
Yeah, I love borrowing the Mark III for events from Adam, and now I have the 4. The photos look fantastic so far. I've been taking a lot of photos in the dual pixel RAW mode, so I'm going to use Canon software and see how much I can focus adjust. But I've been also using it to shoot a lot of video, and I really love the tap to focus touchscreen on the back. I really wish the touchscreen flipped out so I can use it as a viewfinder, but there's HDMI, and it's lighter than the 5D Mark III, but if you're putting on a big Canon lens, it's still pretty heavy.
Sounds good. I put Google Allo through the paces this week, and there were a few commenters last week that called me out for testing it live during the show as not being the appropriate way. I meant for it to be initial reactions, and I was kind of mad about it crashing my phone. So it's been I had to reinstall it because it was constantly crashing my phone, and whatever happened after I reinstalled it, it's been a lot more stable. I haven't had any problems with it. And while I know they've always offered encryption as an opt-in, if you go back and watch the I/O keynote, it's still disappointing that it's that opt-in. I have to do like 3 clicks to get to an encrypted message.
Why do you think that's their choice?
Because they want it to be context aware, so it can improve other functions on your device. So it wants to be able to read your messages, understand what's going on, and if it's end-to-end encrypted, like part of that is that you disable some of those other pieces, like including like location services. I have not found the Assistant to be more useful than Google Now has been on my phone, and the app is currently on my 6P, which is basically one of the faster Android phones on the market until next week. It has been slow. It's been sluggish compared to just a basic SMS app. So it's hard to recommend Allo as it stands right now. The Assistant doesn't add a whole lot. Yes, I can do encryption through it, but it takes a bunch of pushes to get to an encrypted message. And those encrypted messages really only work with other people that have Allo, and it just doesn't have that kind of penetration yet.
Can you tell before you send someone a text that they have Allo?
It'll list from your contacts who you're able to.
Allo.
Yeah,
Cool.
So I'm still mildly disappointed. Not as much as I was last week, but it still hasn't been great.
And one last thing, I guess we're done with what we've been testing. We do want to give a plug. We are doing a live show.
Again?
Yes.
Year number 3. It's a
Yes.
month from when you're listening to this podcast.
That's right. October 29th in San Francisco at the Castro Theater as a part of the Bay Area Science Festival. We're building our lineup right now, but it will be presentations, talks, demos from our friends and family members of Tested. And we'll be doing a special recording of Still Untitled on stage.
Yeah, and I'll say we've themed this show. We're calling it Journeys, just because Tested this year has taken a lot of trips and adventures to new realms, both physical and virtual. And we want to highlight some of that through a whole series of different presentations. I'm most excited that we have a band this year.
Oh.
Journey?
No.
Journey's going to be playing?
Oh, what a mistake that I didn't try to book Journey for this show. That would have been amazing.
Can't be too much.
Oh, yeah, it can.
Oh.
Oh my God, yeah, I can.
Don't stop believing.
A lot of your favorites will be there. More information on the lineup and the exact flow going out. We're having a meet and greet with a lot of the Tested family there too, so you can still buy premium tickets. And I know a lot of our premium members don't live here in San Francisco, but most of the Tested team is here, and that's why we do the show here. So apologies. We hope to create a version of this for people elsewhere at another time, but for right now, this is the best we can do. It's going to be an awesome night.
Super excited for it. Hope you guys can join us for that. But we also will be filming it and releasing it on the site. And stay tuned for more information. I think we're going to have links on the site as well. If you go to Bay Area Science Festival,
BayAreaScience.org, and there's a link on the Tested site as well.
Great.
I do know who I'm voting for. Please don't text me. Please don't message me on Twitter.
But you can follow both Kishore and Jeremy on Twitter. Kishore is at ScienceKish, and Jeremy is at Jerware.
Oh, I'll plug one last thing. I was on Cara Santa Maria's podcast, Talk Nerdy, this week, where if you want to know more about me personally and what I do and my other jobs, you can listen to that.
All right, more Kishore. And for our outro this week, we did get some sent in, so thank you. There's a new outro. Let's go play it.
You know what? There
Hi there, I didn't see you.
It's a small room. It's all white. It's going to be really hot in here in about 2 hours. It seems very familiar to me.
Thanks, Robert, for making that. We'll see you next week.